Nobody had lived in the house on Elmer Street for 11 years. The electricity had been cut off for just as long. So when 36-year-old Nora saw the upstairs light flicker on at midnight, she knew something inside that house was very much awake. The town of Graymill was the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happened. The streets were quiet, the people were boring, and every house looked exactly the same except one. The house at the end of Elmer Street was different. It was tall and crooked, like a tooth that never grew in straight. The paint had peeled off years ago, leaving the wood dark and rotten underneath. The garden was dead. The windows were black. And a rusted iron fence wrapped around it like fingers around a throat. Everyone in Graymill knew the story. A family had lived there once, the Holloways. Father, mother, and a little girl named Rose. Then one night, 11 years ago, they simply vanished. No bodies were ever found. No notes were left behind. The doors were locked from the inside, and every single clock in the house had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. After that, nobody went near it. Nora had heard the story 100 times. She was 36, a single mother, sharp and strong, the kind of woman who never showed fear in front of her daughter. She had moved to Graymill just 3 months ago, renting the small house directly across from that dark, crooked building on Elmer Street. Every night, after tucking her daughter Lily into bed, she would sit by the window with her tea and stare at the house without meaning to. It never changed. It never moved. It just sat there, cold and silent, like it was holding its breath. Until the night it wasn't. It was a Thursday in late October when Nora first saw it. She had stayed up late going through old work files, and she got up to wash her cup in the kitchen. On her way back, she passed the front window and glanced across the street out of habit. Her feet stopped. The upstairs window, the one directly facing her living room, was glowing. Not bright. Not like a lamp. It was a pale, sick yellow light, the kind that flickered and trembled, almost like a candle being blown by a wind that had no right to exist inside an abandoned house. Nora pressed her face against the cold glass. Her breath made small white clouds. She stared. The light stared back. Then, slowly, a shadow moved across it. The shape was tall. Too tall. And it stood perfectly still for a long moment, as if it knew she was watching. Nora stepped back from the window. Her teacup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Her heart was hammering. She was not the kind of woman who scared easily. She had raised a child alone, survived hard years, faced real problems. But this feeling was different. This was the kind of fear that lives in the stomach, cold and heavy, and does not leave. She grabbed her phone and took a photo. The next morning, she showed it to her neighbor and closest friend in Graymill, a quiet, steady woman named Claire. Claire was 41, a retired schoolteacher, the kind of person who had seen enough of life to take things seriously. She studied the photo carefully, the dark house, the glowing window, the long, still shadow, and then she said the worst possible thing. "Nora, I think we should go look." Nora had not expected that. Not from Claire. She had expected Claire to laugh, to give her a rational explanation, to tell her it was a reflection or a trick of the streetlights. Instead, Claire set the phone down on the table and folded her hands. Her face was calm, but her eyes were serious. "I've lived in Graymill for 20 years, Claire said quietly. "And for 20 years, that house has been dark. I need to know why it isn't anymore." They decided to go that very night. Just to look, they told themselves. Just to stand at the fence. Just to see. Nora arranged for Lily to sleep over at a classmate's house. She did not want her daughter anywhere near Elmer Street that night. Something deep inside her, the part that was a mother before anything else, made sure of that. By the time they reached the gate of the Holloway house, it was 11:30. The street was empty. The sky was thick with clouds. And the house was, as always, completely dark. Maybe it was nothing, Nora whispered, almost hoping she was right. Then the light came on. Same window. Same pale yellow glow. Same flickering that had no business existing in a house with no electricity, no people, and no reason none at all to still be alive. Claire grabbed Nora's arm. Neither of them spoke. The shadow appeared again in the window. This time, it raised one hand, and pressed it flat against the glass. Like it was waving. Like it had been waiting for them. You've made it this far, which means you're already too deep to turn back. If you dare to find out what's inside that house, smash that like button, share this with someone brave enough to watch, and subscribe, because not everyone who enters the Holloway house makes it back out. The lights are already on. And something knows you're here. The gate was unlocked. That was the first wrong thing. Nora remembered someone in town saying the gate had been padlocked for years to keep people out. But the chain was on the ground, clean and unrusted, as if it had been removed recently and carefully. Claire pushed the gate open. It didn't creak. That was the second wrong thing. Old iron gates always creak. This one swung open in total silence, smooth as a whisper. They stepped inside. The dead garden crunched under their feet. Leaves that had turned black with age crumbled like ash. The closer they got to the front door, the colder the air became, not a natural cold, not the kind that came from October wind. This was a cold that seemed to rise up from the ground itself, from somewhere deep below. The front door was open, just a crack. Just enough. We should not go in, Nora said. Claire was already pushing it open. Inside, the house smelled like old wood, dust, and something else, something sweet and wrong, like flowers left too long in dirty water. Their phone torches cut through the dark in thin white beams, catching floating dust and the skeletal shapes of furniture still covered in white sheets. Everything was exactly as it had been the night the Holloways disappeared. The dining table was still set for 3. Plates. Cups. A meal that had rotted down to nothing. Chairs pushed back, like the family had stood up in a hurry and never sat back down. On the wall, there was a clock. It had stopped at 3:17 a.m. Let's just go upstairs, Claire said, her voice barely a whisper. Check the room with the light. 5 minutes. Nora didn't want to. Every single part of her body, her skin, her stomach, her bones, was screaming at her to leave. But her feet were already on the first step. The stairs groaned under their weight. Halfway up, Nora's phone torch died. She tapped it. Shook it. The battery, which had been at 80% when they left, now showed 2%. The screen flickered once and went black. Claire, she whispered. Claire was already at the top of the stairs. Her torch was still on. And it was aimed at a door at the end of the hallway. The light was coming from beneath it. That same sickly yellow glow, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Claire reached the door first and touched the handle. It's warm, she breathed. She turned it. The room was small. A child's bedroom. A tiny bed with a rusted iron frame. Drawings on the walls, hundreds of them, floor to ceiling, all drawn in black crayon, all showing the same thing. A house. A dark street. 2 women with phone torches. Standing at a gate. Nora stumbled backward. The drawings were recent. The crayon was fresh. She could smell it. "These are us," she said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. "These are drawings of us." The light in the room was coming from a single white candle on the window sill. It was still burning. Still fresh. Someone had lit it very recently, maybe minutes ago. Claire spun around with her torch. The room was empty. But there was a closet door on the far wall, and it was closed, and from beneath it slowly, deliberately a thin shadow stretched out across the floor. Something was standing just behind it. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Then 3 slow knocks came from inside the closet. Knock. 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 And a small voice, high-pitched, sweet, and terribly calm, said from behind the wood, "I knew you'd come. I've been drawing you for a very long time." They ran. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Through the front door and across the dead garden and through the open gate and all the way down Elmer Street without stopping, without looking back, until they collapsed against the lamppost 2 blocks away, gasping for breath, their legs shaking beneath them. It was Claire who looked back first. She grabbed Nora's shoulder without a word and pointed. The house was dark again. Every window black. Every light gone. Except one. Nora's bedroom window across the street, in her own home, was glowing with that same pale yellow light. And standing in it, perfectly still, was a shadow she did not recognize. Nora never told her daughter what she saw that night. She pushed her heaviest furniture against the bedroom door and sat in the hallway until sunrise, back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, listening. Claire stopped answering her phone 2 days later. When Nora went to her house, the windows were dark. The door was locked from the inside. And on Claire's kitchen table, Nora saw it through the window, was a single white candle. Still burning. Still fresh. Nora moved away from Grey Mill the very next week. But on the last night, she looked back one final time and the light in the Holloway house was on. And it was not the only one.